respect the independence and sovereignty and borders of Ukraine and of international laws. And just days after the world came to Russia for the Olympic Games, it would invite the condemnation of nations around the world. And indeed, the United States will stand with the international community in affirming that there will be costs for any military intervention in Ukraine. The Ukrainian people deserve the opportunity to determine their own future.
Now you've called this an invasion. So what are the costs?
Well, we're now discussing all of the options. This is an act of aggression that is completely trumped up in terms of its pretext. It's really 19th century behavior in the 21st century, and there is no way to start with that if Russia persists in this, that the G8 countries are going to assemble in Sochi. That's a starter. But there's much more than that. Russia has major investment and trade needs and desires. I think there's a unified view by all of the foreign ministers I talked with yesterday, all of the G8 and more, that they're simply going to isolate Russia, that they're not going to engage with Russia in a normal business as usual manner, that Russia is inviting opprobrium on the international stage. There could even be, ultimately, asset freezes, visa bans. There could be certainly a disruption of any of the normal trade routine. There could be business drawback on investment in the country. The ruble is already going down and feeling the impact of this. And this is not, the reason for this, David, is because you just don't invade another country on phony pretext in order to assert your interests.
Well, but
there are ways to deal with this, but they are really there's sort of a hidden pretext here of possibly trying to annex Crimea.
Is there a military option? There is, as you know, a security arrangement with Ukraine that goes back to the 90s between the U.S. and Ukraine and other Western powers. Does NATO draw a line here to try to check any further aggression beyond Crimea into the eastern part of Ukraine?
Well, NATO is meeting today. The North Atlantic Council is meeting probably even as we speak now. They will be. I know that Secretary General of NATO, Rasmussen, issued a statement, very strong statement against what has happened. But I don't know what is actually on the table with respect to the steps they may or may not take. But they're deeply concerned. Today or tomorrow, the European Foreign Affairs Council will meet. They are very concerned about what has happened. We talked yesterday with Japan, with others. This is a global concern, because in the 21st century, countries have been working to establish a different kind of behavior as the norm.
That I understand. I'm just trying to understand. I think a lot of people watching us are trying to understand. How important is Ukraine essentially to the United States? What's our interest there? Is this worth fighting for, literally?
David, let me make it clear. The people of Ukraine are fighting for democracy. They're fighting for freedom. They're fighting to have their voices heard and not be governed by a kleptocracy, by a tyrant, by someone who puts their political opposition in jail, somebody who robs the country of its livelihood and future. And they spoke out.
Is there a military option that has to be contemplated here?
David, the last thing anybody wants is a military option in this kind of a situation. We want a peaceful resolution through the normal processes of international relations. But in the absence of President Putin making the right decision to work with the government of Ukraine, to work with the West, to work with all of us, as I said a moment ago, this is not about Russia and the United States. It's about the people of Ukraine. The fact is, we are doing more than almost any other country. We're doing an enormous amount. And once again, Russia is playing a very duplicitous game and a very dangerous game. They proclaim that they are worried about the terrorists, worried about Syria, worried about the impact on Jordan, and